I pick up all of my news through osmosis just because I hear somebody say something about it somewhere. And so that's how I came to know that there is this, there's some kind of directive being handed down by the Attorney General right now saying we need to really put a lid on all of the unruliness that's taking place at school board meetings with all of these angry parents and such, and it's just getting out of hand, and we've got to we've got to take some steps to see that order and civility are restored to these school board meetings. I'm reminded of a few weeks ago, maybe it was more like a couple of months ago, there was this flurry of stories in the mainstream media about passengers on airplanes are behaving in a really terrible, unruly manner all of a sudden, and they're throwing temper tantrums, and the staff of commercial airplanes have had it. They're just up to their ears with all of these unruly, rude, obnoxious passengers. And everything I heard was just from the perspective of, you passengers, you need to shape up. You people who get on planes, you're not cutting it. You people who get on planes, you're making it very difficult for the good, noble, right, just staff of commercial airplanes to do their jobs. So, there was this very talking down to you kind of thing, and the same kind of a vibe is happening here with these school board meetings. Now, are school board meetings, getting? Are there a lot of angry people at these meetings? Yes, there are, and a lot of them are angry for good reasons, in my opinion. But, of course, the elitist media that thinks that they're better than, middle America, it's the same old saw, the same old thing that we see everywhere. As I understand, there was some Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live is still on the air. Saturday Night Live should have been gone 20 years ago. Why is it still a show? And why and of course, way to take a provocative stand on things, right? To just show a bunch of parents being obnoxious and unruly and ignorant and so forth. Ha ha ha! Those dumb American parents who want to go against what the educational establishment is trying to push on their kids in public schools. They're such losers. They're such dopes. They're such ignoramuses. Ha 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 ha. Right. It's the same old, same old. I mean, and it's not that I'm not temperamentally a populist, I'm not somebody who thinks if you're one of the common folk, then that makes you good. That makes you more inclined to be good. But I do just despise this kind of elitism that has crept through, especially, and you see it especially crystallized in these two clusters of stories. Like I said, a couple months ago, for some reason, there were all these stories about airline passengers and how awful they were being on airplanes and so forth. And what we didn't hear about was a story where some I think 2-year-old kid who was having an asthma attack when his parent took his mask off, then they kicked the parent and the kid out of the plane. They don't talk about stories like that. They don't talk about stories where the staff behaves tyrannically towards the passengers, or speaks to them harshly, speaks to them condescendingly, speaks to them in ways that sets them off. I think I shared this before, but on the time I flew in a plane when I went out to South Dakota back in February, I remember, there were a couple of guys sitting next to me on my row, and one of the harpiest flight attendants you can think of just got all over them because at one point their masks were down beneath their noses, and she was just really, and they weren't doing it maliciously. I don't think they spoke much English. But there was this, I noticed this tone of, increased, condescension. This, when we were getting on the plane in Atlanta, and I think this may be more the whole culture of the Atlanta airport. I remember the person saying, "Now these are face masks. They're not chin masks." Just sort of talking to people like they're children as they're getting on board the planes. You set the tone in a certain way. People respond to it, and I'm certainly not exonerating obnoxious passengers, and I'm not saying that everybody at school board meetings behaves themselves well, but the way both of these stories are framed in this patently elitist kind of manner, and now a directive, an actual federal directive going down, saying we need to monitor what's going on in these school board meetings because it's getting out of hand. That's in any way the purview of the federal government. It's ridiculous. It's nuts. It's you want to talk about being out of control. That's a federal government that, well, it's been out of control for a long time, but that's certainly one good example of them straying into areas that are not properly their purview. So these are just a few thoughts on these flurries of elitist stories about, first it was unruly airline passengers, and now that's become passé, and now it's unruly school board members, being mocked in lame SNL sketches. SNL should just die. It should have died. When the towers came down, that should have been the end of SNL. I don't know why 20 years later on. Why is it still a thing? I honestly, I could say the same thing about so many shows like The Simpsons or Family Guy, and others. But anyway, but if it has to be around, then at least don't just be reflecting the state corporate party line. Well, we got to make fun of these parents in middle America who don't want their children taught critical race theory. It's time to really come down on these people. Right. That's, talk about punching down. Talk about punching at people who you believe to be beneath you. That's not really incredibly edgy humor. That's not really incredibly smart or clever or interesting humor. So screw them. Anyway, those are just a few of my thoughts. What do you think? My name is Andy Nowicki. Check out my work at altrightnovelist.com and see my latest book, The Insurrectionist. It can be purchased at terrorhousepress.com.